Here we go then. So another video. Here we go. Buddy of mine, Lucian, he asked me to be a little bit more technical, so I'm gonna get into that for you, mate. This is a rub-through etch primer. Now, an etch primer has phosphoric acid in it, which helps stop corrosion. So any little bust-throughs on this panel, these are electrocoated. It's like a primer that's put on at the factory. It's one of the best primers out there, to be honest. It completely coats inside, outside, every nook and cranny that it can get into. But it's the best protection for the car, so ideally you don't want to take too much of that off. I do believe the wet on wet does have some corrosive properties in there, but I'm not 100% sure with PPG because I'm quite new to it. And having this rub-through etch primer in the booth, you know, I'm just going to put it on. It's not going to hurt it in any way, and I just want to make sure that my my tail is covered so that there's no possibility for it to come back. But the electrocoat, you want to keep as much of that on there as possible. Now I'm going to be putting on the wet on wet, which is sort of a one coat primer. You don't need to go mad with this stuff. You just want one nice even coat, and this is going to be all the protection that the car requires, really, primer wise. With it being new panels, there's a new wing mirror, new door handles. Were they new door handles? Can't remember. This was a little while ago, this job. 2 new doors. And it's the perfect substrate for the base coat to go over. So the, well, I say the substrate. Yeah, it is right. This primer is the best thing for this base coat to go over. So the door is now sort of fully protected with the etch and the electro coat on there, and now this etch primer is going to be the perfect base for the base coat to go over. And you just want to make sure this isn't like multiple coats. I was saying before, it's just like a one nice even wet coat to go over it all. And yeah, that just sort of gives it, this is more, although it's a primer and it does sort of help protect the panel, it gives the correct sort of grey shade, and it helps the paint do what it needs to do. You could put any colour primer on here, but you're just going to be fighting with it. If you put a dark one on it, the light colour's not going to cover that well. And even if it does cover that well, the grey underneath might throw it off a little. So as much as this is to protect the panel and make sure that you've got the right mil thickness and all that good stuff that you'd expect from a primer, it does primarily help us get the right colour as well, the right sort of ground coat for the base to go on. So we initially, you'll see in a little minute, I'm going to end up priming over the car. We initially did put a light grey on there, but when the car was cameraed and we selected the right colour for it, it told us we needed a white primer, so I've had to sort of redo the priming on this. I didn't actually primer this job. Introducing the PainTeX Pro-Cure. It's the newest generation of UV torch from PainTeX. It has a massive curing area in comparison to the competitors. It has many different functions. It's available as a torch or the kit, and it cures everything that we've tested it on according to their TDS. A link will be in the description if you're interested. Although I did do some prep on it. No, actually, I tell a lie, I think I did primer this job. I just hadn't cameraed it yet. There's me trying to blame other people. Look at me, such a bad man. So yeah, it's again nothing crazy. This new panel. Sometimes new panels aren't sealed. You can see the sealer around the edge of this panel. This one did come pre-sealed. And sometimes that's something that you've got to do in insurance work. You'll get the odd panel here and there that doesn't have any sealer on it, so that's the sort of prepper painter's responsibility to get in there and redo the sealing on there. I'm not wild about it. I'm not brilliant at doing it, mostly because of sort of the lack of experience. I can do it. I like to sort of tape it up and then just sort of wet my finger up and run along the edge of it and then peel all the tape off so it looks a bit nice. Nothing but respect for the people that can run around the panel with just sort of a beautiful finish straight out of the sealer gun, because that's quite a skill. So where was I? just getting text messages and stuff. It's been mental, absolutely mental. The past couple of days have been a bit crazy for me. With my little business and stuff. Phones, again, there we go. Phones constantly going off. PainTeX is starting to make some way with the new kit that we've just brought out. The PainTeX Pro-Cure. It's a upgraded version of the sort of UV chip repair kit, except from the UV torch that we've got in it is now sort of more than 3 times the power of the last torch. It's got a huge curing area in comparison to its rivals, sort of competition within the UV torch industry. Yeah, industry. And it's got a built-in battery that can be recharged at any point as well. So that's a nice big bonus that a lot of guys have sort of asked for. I have heard what you guys have asked for, and I've listened to it. So the rechargeable battery is now a thing that we have within PainTeX. Again, there's nothing wrong with the old torch. It was designed for doing the sort of chips and silicon touch-ups and stuff like that. But because the torch does cure primers and stuff, and I'm guilty of it, I've been showing it off, but people are really pushing the limits of it. So we've decided to just put on a much more powerful torch. Now, stop rambling about that. You'll see here, I'm just using some wet on wet. That's what I was saying, going over the grey, just to make sure that it is the right undercoat here. And you'll notice I'm using the fade out thinners. Brain fart. Had the fade out thinners on the edge of the wet on wet that I'm applying here, and that just gives me a smooth transition between the edge of the wet on wet and the old base coat that we're about to paint over. And I do believe you can use it. I'm just afraid of it. If it doesn't smooth out as nice as you want it to, then you might have to come in there with like an 800 or something, or 1000 and pad it down, and you could potentially open a whole can of worms. So I'm not up for that. I'll just put the fade out thinner on the edge, let it flash off, let it do its thing, and be done with it. You see here the old HDE clear with the Walcom 360 True Light that we've got on there. And this has been a big help for me, having the torch. I know some guys are skeptical of them. Over time, even I was a little bit skeptical. I'd like to think, as long as you do it, I've said it many videos, do your edges first. Make sure you're getting in all the awkward places that you're potentially going to be a bit shy of paint on. Do all them first while your pot's full and all that good stuff, and then you're not likely to forget them and miss them. But when I came here, the booth was quite dark, although we freshened it up a little bit with some new sort of sticky sheeting on the wall. You kind of underestimate how good these torches are. Illuma go on about it, how they get nothing but abuse from people saying that why do you need it? And then you've got the die-hard fans that once you've used it, you're like, right, I'm not going to paint without one. So I'm not quite in that camp yet. I mean, this is, again, a dark booth, or if you're doing smart repairs and then the lighting's not quite adequate and stuff like that, these are a game changer. I let one of the lads in here use this torch, and he said he felt like he'd been painting in the dark for years. So that just shows you how good they are and how much you do need them. It's just one of these, I feel like, underneath the backs of these doors, again, the lighting's not brilliant in this booth, although it doesn't look too bad on the video. It just seems a little bit, I don't know, I joke this, it feels like a dungeon a little bit. It's just got that darkness to it. But like underneath the doors and stuff, around the back and sort of the door jamb areas where you're not likely to get, although you do fire the gun under there, you're not likely to get that full coverage that you come to expect. So the torch just helps you see what you get in there. So I highly recommend them. It's just one of these things. You'll use them or you won't. I mean, I'm just doing the base coat here. I've got the one visit modifier in, although this is a solid colour, and I will praise PPG here. It said it was an edge-to-edge match, and it did match, so that was a relief. I wasn't too sure. Excuse me. I wasn't too sure when you'll see here, initially I'm just trying to blow in this wing because it's only a blend, but the match was so accurate. It was one of these, I feel like you could kind of see the blend a little bit. I don't think you'll ever see it on video. That's as much as I put on there. But after it had dried off, I think I just completed the full wing. It wasn't going to hurt. The colour was accurate enough, and this job went straight out the door, no issues at all. So it was, I don't know. I think it's just maybe that weariness that I've got because I've had a couple of colours bite me. I am kind of skeptical. You can see there with the torch. Perfect. That's exactly what we want the torch for. We want to make sure that we're getting under these areas enough. Although throwing the torch under there will probably get it covered. You notice the gun spluttering slightly there. Probably wouldn't have noticed that without the torch. But these are the kind of areas where you don't want it to be light. Not that it's going to be a problem to blow it back in afterwards, although it probably would be a massive problem in a place like this where we don't have time to do things twice. So in reality, it's not hard to, if you've missed a little bit on the back of a door, to get it blown in, but it's one of these, just do it. Paint's in the gun. And then that's what I was saying. I am batch recording videos now. In one of the videos that's coming out or has come out, I did say about this, I don't want to be doing I'm just having a brain fart today. It's one of these days. I don't want to be doing like a blow-in on the inside of a panel after the car's been done. It's not ideal. Again, you can lay the door flat, you can mask it up, you can go in there and do it, but it's not good enough for me. I did notice Oli Paints, Joel, shout out to Joel. He's done a video. He was saying that, like, quite a lot of the cars, and I can only assume it's because they're American, don't have a lot in the door jambs, and he was just doing, I think he was doing a video on a brand new wing, and he did turn the booth lights off, and he did have a check with his various torches and stuff, and it was a little bit transparent on the inside of where the wing or the fender sort of meets the car, and it was a little transparent. It wasn't anything bad, don't get me wrong, he's done a nice job, but he was saying that's actually better than OEM. But I think I've said it in a video in the past, I've seen managers go crazy at painters that haven't got paint underneath. You'll see here, I'm trying to go to town under there. I want every little bit of paint under there that I can get, just because it's done then. Refinish Media, I'm fairly new to there. I've just subscribed to their YouTube channel. He was saying the same thing, no better and no worse than OEM. So they're not trying to make it better, and they're not trying to obviously send it out any worse. And that was kind of the point I was getting at here. The painter that I seen, they had to go at him because there wasn't enough coverage underneath the door. Again, no big deal. You can sort of lie the door flat and paint the insides first. Maybe this is why people spray the jams and stuff first. But he actually went and got the door, this particular painter, the original door that had come off the car, and he showed the manager and he said, there's no paint under here. Again, like Joel was saying from Oli Paints, there's not much paint on the insides, but for me it's just do it right. Just for all it takes, you're already back there, the paint's already in the gun. Just hoof a bit of paint under there and make sure it's covered. It's not going to come back. And I don't think anybody's going to complain that it's slightly better than OEM. Don't get me wrong, I don't think anybody's going to get on their hands and knees and look underneath their door to check if there is coverage under there. But there's always that one. I was just a little sort of flashback there. I remember we had a guy show up with a torch and he was on his back in the car park, so it can happen. But it's one of them, it's kind of cheap insurance, and it's nice having this torch on the front there to do that. So just do it. Why not? So I'll get back to trying to be a bit more technical for you, Lucian, if you're listening. Good lad. Yeah, so the one visit modifier in this situation, it's allowed me to put onto 2 coats of paint. You see I've kind of give that a bit of a flash. Although it's still wet, I'm going to come back across and put another coat of paint on the car. I've kind of done 2 up and down the doors. And then that gives me the 2 coats that you would initially put on the car. Normally you do 2 in a drop. Solid colours, I've only ever put 2 coats on. Sometimes they need 3. And sometimes I've drop coated them. I've had one rep try and tell me that you shouldn't do it because it can cause adhesion issues, but I don't see why that would be the case. Why would it be any different on a solid and not a metallic? And if you're a rep, let me know in the comments why would that be wrong. I'm not sure it would, but sometimes it's just out of habit. I keep saying I am a little bit of a robot. I will just sort of go in there and paint and do what I'm doing. And again, one of the reasons I like doing the videos, it kind of keeps me switched on. I'm not just drifting off into my own little land, or I'm not getting sucked too much into like a Joe Rogan podcast or something where I'm not sort of fully engaged. Whereas when I'm doing the videos, I am conscious of making sure that I'm sort of following the TDS and doing it right. So this one I have give the second coat a little bit more time to sort of, well, the first coat a little bit more time to flash off before I put the second one on. Sometimes I just go right over the top, a little bit like I did with the doors, kind of one up it and then one back down it, and just make sure it's got that good coat on there. And again, perfect thing with the torch, just checking that there's coverage on the insides of those handles. Again, not that anybody's really going to see it, but you know, when it's getting fitted up on the shop floor, someone's going to go, oh, this isn't quite covered or whatever. And they're well within their rights to do that as well. If it's not covered, it's not covered. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm wanting to get away with it, but sometimes they go a little too far with some things. But straight onto the clear coat here. This one is the 8711 PPG. It's an air dry clear, which is sort of to our advantage here. What we're doing is we're doing like a 10-minute bake, and that's more than enough to get this to the point where you can sort of touch it and get on it. I don't think we quite sort of polish them right away. We do have a polisher here that he does his own thing, so we'll chuck this out of the booth after it's had its 10-minute bake. And don't get me wrong, we're fully unmasking these and getting on them. Probably not polishing them right away, like I say, but they're definitely dry enough to kick out of here so we can get the next job in. So that might be worth looking at if you're looking for a bit more, like another way to be a bit more energy efficient within your workshop is to switch to an air dry clear and then just sort of give it a low bake, a few minutes. Or you could still give it the half an hour, but you could turn the gas right down. You could turn the temperature down to probably sort of 40, 50 degrees and give it a half hour, 20 minutes. Whereas I think we're doing 10 minutes at 70, I think it is. But that gets it heated right up. It gets it cured, like I say, more than enough where we can get in. We can start working on it, really, fitting it up, getting it ready. Sometimes it'll be polished before it's fitted up, just because our guy's super efficient. But then if the polisher's busy, then they can run out and they can have it fitted up, put the doors back on, get it built up, and then they can send it down to be polished later on. So it's definitely dry enough that we can work on the car. And it's quite a nice clear to apply. I have had a couple of little runs and sort of heavy edges, but this is to be expected when you're working with a new product. Again, I'm brand new to PPG and I've not used it that much, but I actually quite like using different products and getting to know what you can and can't get away with. This, what I found was my first coat was probably a little too wet, so sometimes I would get a little bit of picture framing and not a run, but like a drip on an edge of like a bumper or something. You just get that heavy edge with like a little sort of drip in it. Easy enough to sort of sand out and what have you. And to be fair, our guy in here, Mercy, the polisher, he usually takes care of all that for us. He's a good lad. But it's one of these that I've figured if I just hold back, I'm still getting a full closed coat, but it's, I was going to say it's dry, but it's thin. There's like next to no build to it, but it is a closed coat. And then the second coat, I'm giving it more of a big wet coat. And that's really working for me now, so I'm getting quite comfortable with the clear coat and stuff, which is nice. It's an awkward one. I always say it only takes you a couple of days to get dialed in, but the way we work here is we have 2 days in the booth, and then somebody else will go in the the booth and do his 2 days, and then there'll be another one. So it might be like you're not been in the booth for a week. So trying to get stuff dialed in and getting a rhythm and things like that, it's disruptive. It's not too bad, but if you were in there every day for like a week, you'd probably get on it right away. But it's just one of these when you're coming out and going back in, and it's easy, again, being in the trade for so long, to fall back into the routines of doing it the way that I've done it for the past, I was going to say 20 years. I've been painting for 20 years, but I've only been good for maybe 15 of those after, you've done your apprenticeship and you've had your time in the booth. So it's just, again, finding your rhythm. I did say in another video I paint from the bottom of the door up, because I used to get a lot of orange peel on the bottoms of doors, and it wasn't awful, it was polishable, but I just used to rush that little bit on the bottom of the doors. And that's what I was saying about getting in the rhythm. It's, if you're used to doing things one way, then that's the way you're going to do it. Whereas, because I'm not having that good solid time in the booth because of the way we rotate between the painters, it's easy to come out for a week and kind of forget what you've done last week, and then just go back into it. It needs one good coat, 5-minute flash, another good coat. Whereas, I suppose it's just one of these things that I'm getting with experience with PPG, but I'm liking it. Again, I don't have a bad word to say about the products, really. It's just sometimes the computer's telling me one thing and giving me another, so it's just adapting to that. But you'll see here, I'm just making sure, again, edges, in and out. And you'll notice as well, I've took the torch off. A lot of good things to say about the torch while I was putting the base on. There is a way to dim the Walcom 360 True Light. If you hold the power button, you can decrease the sort of light sensitivity, how bright it is, which makes it a little easier to see what you're doing. And that's all I was going to say with that. Sometimes the light when you're putting the clear coat on is so bright that it can be kind of hard to chase a reflection, whereas the lighting in this booth isn't the best, but because you've got almost enough darkness where you can use the lights to your advantage and see how glossy that you get in the panels. I mean, if you look at that door next to me with the way that the lights are sort of shining off of it and off the car there, it's easier for me to follow with the clear coat without the torch, so that's what I've been tending to do. But again, a valuable bit of kit, and I really appreciate Walcom sending me that. Good lad. Shout out to Craig. And the doors blew open here. Look at this door. Little bit of cloth on the handle bolted into the door. A few magnets to hold it shut. It's a bit of a strange booth, this, actually. I'm putting my second coat on. Sorry, Lucian, I'm getting drifted away here. But the doors, they don't like roll up or anything. The whole wall just goes up in the air, so it's a bit strange. And you got to be careful, obviously, if like that door blew open there. If I was lifting the doors up or the walls up, you might catch the door on the light and stuff. It can be a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, back to the painting again. Just making sure that you're getting everything. Again, it's kind of, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. It's probably one of the things that I struggle with the most in the workshop. This is, I suppose, because it's a very visual job, what we do. But it's also like the end of the job. As soon as this car goes back together and it's had its quick polish and a quick valet, it goes out the door. So the managers and all the people get excited out the front of the house, and they're saying, right, let's go on the phone to the customer because this car should be done now and this and that. But it doesn't buy you any room for error. So like those handles, like I was saying, if I'm putting the clear coat on there and I've only got like a half a coat in there and it's all rough and it doesn't feel very nice, I'm going to have to repaint them handles. But then, have I got enough paint left? Can he chuck it in with the job that he's got in there? Is it going to be a problem? And all of a sudden, just by not taking that little bit of time, like I was saying, to make sure you're getting all your edges properly and and just doing what needs to be done, just paying that extra little bit of attention, it can cause all sorts of problems. But like, this is what I'm trying to say as well, it's not the end of the world if you miss a little bit. You might have to go in and repaint certain bits and bobs, but the kind of the way that the trade is at the minute, we're sort of falling over ourselves to get stuff done. So one of those to keep in mind. I'd rather be sort of 10-20 minutes longer in the spray booth, making sure that everything's done correctly, rather than having to do it twice, or you've missed a part. Or I mean, how many times has that happened in the past? This petrol cap was in the car, like they've bagged it up and they've left it on the back seat or something, or there's a mirror that hasn't been brought out of the store, so you need to put paint on that quick because the car's got to go. And again, it's not that quick, especially if it's a half-hour bake, like I was saying with the bake cycle that we've got with this air dry clear, the 8177. If you've got to wait half an hour for that to bake, you've got to go in, you've got to get your paint on there. Like, let's say it's raw plastic as well, something, maybe. You've got to wet and wet it, or you probably, I don't know, if you'd aerosol it, because you're trying to be quick. Everything's rush now. Whereas if you spend that little bit of extra time to make sure you've got all your parts, you've got all your edges covered, I mean, look, I'm trying to get on the inside of that A-pillar there just to make sure that that's not dry. Again, that part's not going to be an easy polish. There's no quick way to do kind of rework, so again, it's not the end of the world if you miss a little bit, but just depending on your workshop, you're going to be under time restraints, and they're probably looking at this saying, right, this will be ready first thing in the morning, let's start getting the ball rolling with the customer and all that sort of stuff. So it's not the pressure's on you, you just know that they're doing it. It can be tricky to it's not tricky to do your job, but the thing is, if you mess up and you get a run and it doesn't come out, and then you have to sort of flat it and redo the door, and you make a bit of a mess of it, and runs happen. This is the thing, if you don't want to get runs in your paint, don't put paint on, don't paint. It's going to happen. But I do feel like a lot of the pressure is coming from the front of house, just rushing, get that one out the door, that's another number on the board. And don't get me wrong, all the managers have got their own metrics that they have to hit, and they have to produce so many cars per month, and they've got people that they have to answer to. But by putting the pressure on the shop floor in a way like that, I mean, how easy is it for I don't know, to scratch a panel when you're putting the bumper on, or to catch the bumper on something, or I don't know, just things happen. And when you're working in this way where you've got no time, you're asking for trouble. That's what I'm trying to say, you're asking for trouble. If this car, they don't need this until tomorrow, if we're painting tomorrow's cars today, there's a little bit of room, because then whatever the mistake is can be rectified on the same day and put back on the car and all that sort of stuff. So there's, just by working a bit, not pressure off, but when it does happen, like I say, runs are going to happen, accidents are going to happen in the workshop, you're not putting yourself under that time restraint. I've got a couple of minutes. No, I haven't got a couple of minutes. I've got 1 minute. I used to do it with the crash helmets that I used to paint. I used to ask for 4 weeks, and sometimes it'd take me 2. I remember I had 2 weeks. I remember it took me 3 days to paint a helmet one time. But I've built that margin into my business model. And then that way, if something did happen, or if I couldn't get paint, or whatever it was, I wasn't under pressure because I knew I've given myself time. Whereas that's not happening here. We're not factoring in sort of time restraints for ourselves. It's just pressure, and sometimes that pressure gets to you. Anyway, you'll see here 2 good coats on the insides of the doors. Again, I was saying, yes, OEM's not that good, but it doesn't hurt us to do a bang up job, A little bit more paint and materials, but let's be honest, some of that lacquer's going in the bin, There's probably a little bit left over on every job that we do. I say it about blends on the A-pillars and stuff. Just do the whole thing. It's going to be a better job for the customer. It's not going to come back, and everybody's happy. So as we wrap this one up, I'd like to thank you all for watching again, and I will see you in the next one.